Drills are useless unless you add in a few things I'm going to talk about a little bit later in this video. There's a debate on drilling, the benefits and the trade-offs of drilling for any type of sport, specifically martial arts and things like boxing. Now, why should you listen to me? My name is Coach Keith Keppner, professional amateur boxing coach for going on 15 plus years. I've taken people from complete beginners to elite levels. And I've also boxed myself in the United States and Mexico. I was mentored as a coach and trained as a fighter under my father, Doc Keppner, who was a professional boxing coach for multiple decades. And he was trained as a fighter and mentored as a coach under Chuck Bodak, who worked with over 50 world champions. And he was the Olympic coach for Muhammad Ali. What is drilling? When I say drilling, what do I mean by this? I'm talking about partner drilling. So you're with another person and you're mimicking the aspects of the sport of boxing. It is the thing that you can do outside of sparring that is the most like the sport. Yes, even more so than shadow boxing in a sense, because if you're throwing punches and missing punches in the air, that's not quite what it's like to hit somebody. And then obviously you can shadow box your defense, and it's very important for you to do that. But if you don't get the opportunity to learn how to resist things properly, all right? So it is the most like the sport second to sparring. And you know what the best part about drilling is? That you can go hard. Yeah, that's right. For all you sissies out there that want to do everything pity-patty, softy, whatever, this is not the sport. It's like if you are trying to hit a baseball and you want to play baseball and you're hitting the ball soft, that's not how it is. All right? Now, I'm not saying we should CTE each other, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, each other all over the place, but this is a hard sport. This is a punishing sport. This is a dangerous sport. You can't be a race car driver and drive slow. If you want to do that, go do one of these other things, other martial arts where they don't punch each other in the face, or it's point fighting, all right, like point karate, where you get the point and they say stop. Go to that. Get out of boxing. Too much of that going on. All right, so drills are more specific to boxing than mitt work, than bag work, than obviously jump rope, speed bag, double end bag, all that stuff, because you get an opportunity to work on so many things. Now, one of the drawbacks right off the rip with drilling that comes up is that it operates within a certain specific guidelines, right? Because if it didn't operate in certain specific guidelines, it wouldn't be drilling, it would just be sparring. So that is a drawback of it, as opposed to obviously shadow boxing, you get to utilize anything and everything that you would do in a fight. And in sparring, you, unless it's a specific situational sparring, you get to utilize basically everything you would in a fight if you're sparring correctly. Now, drilling can hurt you if you're doing it wrong. One of the main ways, besides just going way too freaking soft, once you understand the drill. Now, again, if you're just getting into boxing or you're just learning the idea of the drill, yeah, you don't blast it out 100%. But once you got the idea of the drill, and once your partner has the idea of the drill, you need to start turning up the intensity. But drills can also be hurtful if you don't watch out for a few things, even without the benefit that I'm going to talk about later in this video. A few of the things that I see all the time, and it doesn't matter what level of boxer you are. I see beginners do this. I see pros do this because we're programmed to hit mitts and things like that. And it's like you have a different mindset of like, okay, I'm sparring or I'm training, right? I'm fighting or I'm training. Those mindsets need to be intertwined a little bit more, not meaning that you need to go crazy as far as just burn yourself out mentally, but you need to have that edge, in my opinion, all the time. You can have fun and have the edge, but you need to have the edge. All right, so what are some things I'm talking about specifically? Specifically, aiming for the target areas. Why you would never practice for soccer, practice for basketball, practice for anything, and practice doing a move wrong. But I see in drills all the time, people practice doing boxing wrong. They purposely miss, shoot for gloves, but they're not even sometimes aware of it. They'll subconsciously aim for gloves, aim for different target areas besides the exact target area. So often I'll have someone be doing a drill and they're blocking a left hook, and then I'll be watching it. And the way that that person is throwing the left hook on the person that's blocking, I'll whisper to the person that's blocking, hey, next time they throw that left hook, just drop your hand down and, keep your chin down and bite down your mouthpiece. But trust me, they ain't going to hit you. So they just drop their hand down the next time they run the sequence, and the punch flies right in front of them. Whoopsie daisy, got a little too excited. Flies right in front of them. And I tell the person that's throwing, hey, look what you're doing. You're hurting yourself, but then you're also hurting them. So you're hurting yourself on your accuracy and your aim because that's so big. You can be powerful as hell, but if you don't have good accuracy with your punches, it doesn't matter, or it's not as helpful versus the person that is a little less powerful than you but has pinpoint accuracy. But then secondly, you're hurting your partner because you're making your partner believe that they can block a hook like out, like let's say the hook's come around here and I'm like out here with it, and because you're throwing in front of my face, or I'm trying to catch a jab right here and it's right here. No, this is the target area, the chin. So you're lying to your partner. And now when your partner goes out there and spars and gets their nose plastered across their face or gets their brain shook, their money took in their name in the Undertaker book, that's going to be your fault. All right. And you're going to be the one to blame. And when they come back in the gym or whatever after their fight and they got beat to piss, they should be looking at you like, hey, homie, where were you for me? Right? You made me think my defense was great. All right. So you have to aim for the proper areas. And then again, once you have the idea of the drill down and it's flowing and it's working correctly, then you increase the intensity to max intensity. All right. So assuming though you're doing everything correct with your drilling, you are still missing out. You're still missing out on a big benefit of drilling. Now, let me give you an example of a fine drill in and of itself in the parameters, in the closed form that it is, because you have closed and open training. Closed is, think about the most basic thing of I'm going to shoot a jab and you know exactly when I'm going to shoot the jab, and you know exactly where I'm going to shoot the jab, and you exactly know how fast I'm going to shoot the jab, and you exactly know how powerful I'm going to shoot the jab, right? And I'm going to tell you exactly before I do it. That's the most closed form of drill you can do. And then you have more open to the extent where you go completely open, you go to situational sparring, and then you go to completely actual sparring, and then you go actually fighting. And that's the most open form of training you can do. All right. But so here's an example of a fine drill. Let's say I'm shooting a single jab at you, moving around, and you pick a time to counter the jab with a specific punch, or maybe a slight more open version would be two different types of punches. So maybe I catch your jab and counter with a jab. Maybe I slip your jab and counter with a right hand, or slip to the inside and counter with a jab. But that way, it's more of a closed format because the person defending knows that it's always going to be a straight punch, and they always know it's going to be after the jab. It's not going to be a counter on the same time as the jab. It's always going to be a counter for the face, and it's going to be straight up the middle. It's not going to be a hook. It's not going to be a different type of shot. That's an example of a perfectly fine drill, completely good. And if you're a beginner or even intermediate, it's perfectly fine to go back to those things when you do them correctly, because what does it help you do? It helps you develop, like I talked about, the aim, the timing, the mechanics. It's a very important time to go back and refine your mechanics, because you can do proper mechanics in shadow boxing. You can do proper mechanics on bag work. You can do proper mechanics on mitt work. You can do that's really the places you would do proper mechanics. But when it comes to actually hitting a person or sparring, oftentimes, tell me, comment below if you find this to be the case, you find that your mechanics fall apart. You do different things that aren't quite the things that you're trying to train to do. And again, there's some variation, that's fine. But we need to try to refine back. There's things that happen. And this is what I love, is because when we're running a drill properly, anyone that works with me knows that I talk about this stuff. When the drill is getting run properly, when we're doing an actual beneficial drill, the thing that pops up in sparring pops up in the drill. Does that make sense? So if someone has a habit of picking their chin up or doing a certain move which is not very advantageous, if we're running the drill at the proper pacing and the right drill, but if we're running at the proper tempo, proper intensity, everything else, those little things that we're trying to fix that come out in sparring and in fighting are going to come out in that drill. And that's so beautiful, because that means we're getting close to that place, that terrain, that now we're going to get a chance to fix it, right? In a more controlled setting, it's getting close to that, but a more controlled setting, so now we can take it and fix it. It's a little bit harder to fix stuff like that in sparring. You can do it, but that's what I love, is when we're finally hitting that point, because I see it all the time. And you tell me if you've seen it with your training, particularly if you've been training for a long time, or even beginners, where you can execute stuff perfectly, but then when it comes to actually the time to execute it, you F it all up. All right? Comment below if you find that to be the case. But so that's an example of a perfectly fine drill. And again, it's very important to do that to refine mechanics, specifically if you're a beginner, because that's how you're going to learn your mechanics, and you're going to do this over time to build up the quote unquote muscle memory, which, isn't a real thing. Muscle memory is not a real thing, but to reprogram your reflexes and your whole nervous system, and to really wrap some myelin around those neurons and those neural connections. All right. Totally great. Fine. And this is, again, though, where you're going to also learn how to resist, right? You learn how to block punches and not smack yourself in the face with it. You're going to learn how to catch a jab and not smack yourself in the jaw with your own hand as you catch a jab. You're going to decondition your blink reflex so much. All right. Now, let's get on to the two things that even when you're doing all of this stuff correctly, you're still missing out, particularly as you progress. All right. So far right now, great for advanced people to go back to these basics because it's always important to go back to the basics. But as you advance, it becomes more important for you to open things up. And this is where oftentimes people will go from completely closed training, like specific, I'm doing this and you're doing that. And it's a choreographed dance. And then they'll just jump right into sparring, right? And there's middle ground in between. And again, there's a lot of opportunity to recreate things that are things that come out in sparring that we need to correct or that we need to start doing more. And this is how we do it, right? So there's two of them. The first one is intentionality. We need to have intentionality to our sparring. So what do I mean? If you can zone out during the sparring, during the drilling, if you can zone out, that's a problem. If you can run that drill and literally be talking to somebody as you're doing it or looking at somebody else as you're doing the drill, like I'm shooting a 1, 2, 3, and then you're shooting a 1, 2, 3, and we're just going back and forth at the same exact time, da, 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 da. If I'm not being mindful, having that intentionality of what am I working on? What am I improving? Am I working on maybe being more relaxed as I defend these punches? Am I working on keeping my position better? Am I working on, at a moment, I'm going to slip the right hand and weave under the hook? Am I working on something? Am I working on my feet position? Maybe I'm working on slightly stepping forward as I'm defending the 1, 2, 3. Maybe I'm working on slightly stepping to the side as I'm defending the 1, 2, 3 because I want to set something up off of it, or I want to think about those things, or literally you're running the whole drill. Like I shoot 1, 2, 3, you shoot 1, 2, 3, back and forth, but you're thinking about the counters. You're looking for the openings. Even that is adding intentionality to your drill. And when you're doing that, you're getting the full benefit from it once you got the basic mechanics down and once you've re-solidified that down if you're more advanced. And then don't throw junk in the system. That, again, goes to intentionality. So what do I mean by junk in the system? So often what happens with a drill, particularly as you get more advanced, is you just add more things to it. So you just elongate the drill. So instead of being like a musician that's going to do a more complex composition, you're just going to play the song longer, right? And because it's longer, now you got to kind of memorize it more and everything else. And you feel like there's more complexity there or more advancement, but it's truly not. It's like, dude, you took a 2-minute punk song and you dragged that sucker out to 2 hours. Whoop-de-doo. It doesn't matter. And you had to remember when it was going to switch, right? How many beats or whatever, how many measures it was going to switch. And that's all you did essentially. All right. And that's what you see all the time. People get confused with this is they'll run a very long, elaborate drill of like, I throw something, you throw something, I counter with this, you do this, that, and the other thing. And as I'm criticizing it, there is a time for that. There is a time to kind of just work on building up some different patterns and everything else, but there's a lot of limitation to it. And if that becomes the core of your training, there is going to be junk in the system. Now, the last thing about intentionality before I go to the next point is you need to bring your fighting mindset to the drill. What do I mean? As you develop as a boxer, again, this is for a little bit people more advanced as you get a little bit further down the road. As you develop as a boxer, you need to start working on your style a little bit. Now, to be clear, if you have not fought yet, don't start working on your freaking style. Even if you have fought 5, 10, even 15 fights, don't quite start working on your style. All right, quote unquote, meaning going off in this rabbit hole of I'm going to box like this person, or this is how my game is going to be. Because you still are developing context and developing refinement on your moves. Now, if you're just a phenom and you got everything locked down hard, I've had people like that occasionally, then you can start exploring different stylistic things. But time and time again, most of the time, when people start trying to do a different style or do a specific style too soon, it ends up breaking their system as a boxer or their foundation as a boxer. All right. But you need to bring, again, if you're more advanced, your style, what you're working on as far as fight-wise. If you're more beginner, you need to bring the same mentality you have in sparring into the drill. So you need to flip that switch of how you feel when you spar and bring yourself to that place. Pretend like you are sparring within the confines of the drill. Because again, that is where it's going to be most beneficial and transfer. If you don't try to bring that sparring mindset or fighting mindset to some degree to the drill, now you're creating an environment where you have two mental programs or switches. And so now you're stuck just with this thing that you're going to look beautiful in drills, even when they're more open-ended drills and everything else with variability. And then when you go to sparring, none of it transfers. But when you bring that fighting mindset to the drill, then that's where you get to expose the flaws that you have when you fight and also implant new techniques, strategies, and everything you need. All right. So now the next thing is number 2. The last one is make the drill variable. All right. So again, obviously, when you make a drill variable, then you got to focus, right? But even in a basic drill where there is no variability, have that intentionality to be thinking and not zoning out and using it to its full, squeeze all the juice you can out of the drill, all right? But now, as far as drill design goes, we're going to talk about this number 2 one with making it more variable. That's more about the design of the drill. Now, there's a big debate out there, particularly in like the jiu-jitsu world, but it's also out in the striking world, boxing world, just a little bit. But is the whole eco, right, versus the drill debate and how like drills are bad and ecological training is the way to go and all that stuff. I definitely use some like eco concepts, but then I'm very big on drills as well. All right. But again, I think almost the whole eco debate, and I might do a whole video about it, is they almost straw man drills, right? In the sense that I'm talking about, where they take drills up as all of the mistakes I'm talking about that people make with drills. They're saying, well, see, drilling sucks and it's stupid. Yeah. And drilling like that does suck and it is stupid. And so therefore they replace it with quote games, which just simply means doing things with certain constraints, which is variable drills or drills with more pressure and things like that. Okay. So anyway, whole other thing, I'm not going to dive down that rabbit hole, but how do we add variation to our drill? All right. So obviously there's some very basic ways you can add variation to a drill. Again, use a basic thing of like, I'm going to shoot a 1, 2, 3, and you're going to shoot 1, 2, 3. The most basic form of that drill is I go 1, 2, 3, you go 1, 2, 3, and it's always the same timing, the same power. And there's like the same amount of time in between the punches. The punches are thrown at the same speed, all of that. You can very easily add variability to it by doing things like defending those punches differently, right? So sometimes you're slipping in between the combination. You slip the right hand, weave under the hook, whatever. You step out of the hook, you angle under the hook. You slip the jab, cut around. You step out of it sometimes. You step slightly in, You defend all those punches a few different ways. Basically, that just expands it out right there. But then adding different times in between. So I shoot 1, 2, 3, and then I got to be focused for when you're going to come back. And then you add more variability where sometimes it's feinting. So you're going to feint before you go. So I got to stay focused and I got to watch and make sure I don't bite on the feint. And this is also an opportunity for you to work on good feints. Because if I'm not biting on the feint at all, it's not a good feint. Make sense? And that's how you expand the drill. But there's even better. All right? And this is the big one. What we don't want in boxing is to be I go, you go, I go, you go, I go, you go, I go, you go. And that is one of the big drawbacks of drills, or can be. Now you can fix this by doing the more elaborate drill of like, I shoot this, you shoot this, we kind of mix it all together and mix and mash, but it's still very close in a sense of it's a choreographed dance. But here's the trick. In between defending, touch them in the chest, touch them in the face lightly in between the shots to get the timing, to get the feel of how to throw when somebody else throws. This is very powerful, very important. I'm going to put up a video example of that, of how it can be beneficial to you, because so often we'll think defense as one thing, offense as another. This is how you're able to blend the two together, and it's very, very powerful. All right, so next, few things to consider. Click on the Patreon page, because there I build out programs for whether you're a person getting into boxing, you've been boxing for a long time, or maybe you're even a coach helping other boxers. Then also, if you want to grow your business or maybe create a business out of boxing, so you get to do like what I've got to do for a long time, been blessed to do, which is to actually make a living off of this amazing, awesome thing called boxing and off of helping people, then go on that Patreon page as well. Check it out and shoot me a message over there. I'm also on Instagram, by the way, Coach Keith Keppner. Check that out. My book, check it out on Amazon. The 66 Strategies to Outthink and Outfight Your Opponent. It's put a lot of work into it. So go on Amazon, check that out. And also watch out for this next video right here.